Hey guys, and welcome back to the South Asian Wedding Guru. We are going to be talking today about planning your South Asian and American blended weddings. So I hope you'll join me along with this little informative talk about planning the two and how to find compromise. Hey there, guys. I'm Amy Rigetti, and I am the host of this South Asian wedding podcast. Here today, we're going to cover what it is to plan a South Asian fused American wedding. This means that no matter where you're from in terms of the US or India, bringing these two cultures together, since I do know a little bit about it, I wanted to just give my take on the insider-outsider view of all things. I think that it's a good thing to be able to have someone give a little bit of information to both sides of the family as they start planning this particular event. It's very important that you understand and know how either sides could feel. Now, this could be reversed on both sides. I don't want to stick to one being South Asian or one being American. As I know from my side, I come from a very conservative family, as well as from Srinu's side. He also comes from a conservative family. So not all families are going to think this way or act this way or behave this way. This is simply my opinion and my education, along with my experience on why it is these things have happened and maybe why I feel that you should give them a little bit more or less attention. So let's go ahead and start about what it is and what it means to have a South Asian American blended wedding and what that might look like. I know the task is daunting, and a lot of people tend to think to themselves, how do we honor and celebrate both traditions without losing ourselves in the process? And there's a very gray line between that. And I have so many helpful insider tips that I hope will help you guys as you start this journey. I know that we're coming up on engagement season, and this is a video that I feel everybody could benefit from. If they just hang in there and listen to me for just a little bit, maybe you can take some of these coping skills and these techniques, apply them to your journey, and come out on the other end happy and cohesive as a family. So let's begin. There are a lot of traditions, obviously, in the South Asian culture of things. And I ask everybody just to do your homework. There's a lot of things that are traditional. There's a lot of things that are cultural. And there are a lot of things that are superstitious. And there are a lot of things that are religious. And being able to know the difference and ask the questions between those will help you guys separate kind of the fact from fiction, but also allow you both as a couple to make decisions on what you guys feel might apply to you. I know that starting on my journey, it was very easy for me to say, do whatever you want, because I was kind of blind in things. I didn't really have a lot of resources that would help me go through the process of what to expect. I had started a group online at that time called Married to India, which Srinu, his background being a computer science engineer, he had built this whole back end and front end for this forum. And even then we always had issues because the back end and the scripting part was for him like fun, and he had a lot of fun with it. But I always wanted it to be pretty on the front end. And Srinu was like, that's not really my expertise, but it worked really well. It did the trick, and it allowed me to really be able to find out what people were doing and thinking in the realm of, that first bout of Indian American couples. I know that there were many that came before me, but this really wasn't something that I was seeing a lot of until recently. I would say like Nick and Priyanka recently. So I wanted to be able to give my insight on what that looks like and why it is that I'm here to share this information, because nobody was there to share it with me. I had seen so many that were on a different end of the spectrum as far as where their relationships were. I had seen some girls who were converting and adapting to typical traditions in India as far as things that were accepted and taught within their culture, not necessarily the Hindu religion. And then I had met people like myself that were just getting into this relationship, didn't know if this was going to be serious or go anywhere, but they definitely wanted answers to some questions before they got knee deep and they couldn't get out. So my purpose is, now that you're knee deep, I want to make sure that you guys have the information that you need to make decisions that are going to help you guys throughout this South Asian Indian fusion process. And the first thing is, let's talk a little bit about tradition and cultures and how we can fuse those. I always say that if you're blending two ceremonies, make them both work and make them both equally represent what it is that you guys want to share. If you decide that you're going to have multiple ceremonies separately and you're going to do your Christian or American ceremony that is non-Hindu, non-Indian, non-anything India related, then that's one thing. But if you guys are like, that's really a lot of work and we really don't want to do like multiple day events, multiple day ceremonies, keep our families away, then I highly suggest that you guys find ways to equally blend these traditions. One thing that I really notice when I'm at weddings is that when you have a fused wedding and they're doing mostly and predominantly an Indian Hindu ceremony, a lot of times Americans are so curious and they want to see things, while the Indian side of things, they're doing their own thing and typical normal, Indian South Asian stuff where they're talking to everybody, everybody's getting up, they're having tea, they're just doing things that might not necessarily have them seated. And you see everybody distracted looking around like, oh my gosh, like nobody's watching this. And it's kind of insightful to just take a look at people and think like, are they okay with it? Are they bothered by it? And it's an equal 50-50 split because for most, the South Asian aspect of it is new to them. And it's important that they not only see what's going on, because that's why they showed up, but it's important that they know what's going on. So the way that I found that I've seen this work the best is to go ahead and try to put one for one. So if you're going to do the Farahs, for example, and you guys are going to walk around the fire, maybe at each walk, take a vow that you maybe would have taken during your American ceremony and allow those to be one for one so that when you have that audience that's a 50-50 split, they're equally engaging, right? In that moment that you've done something Indian, you've done something American, something Indian, something American. And for sure, you get things in there 50-50. And it breaks up a little bit of that feeling of like, we have no idea of what's going on. Bring the things in that matter to you guys. If you do a unity candle or you do a sand ceremony, or in America, we exchange rings for the most part in our Christian ceremonies. So in the Indian ceremonies, we have seen a lot more of the typical American ring exchange, but specifically if it's a Hindu ceremony, they're going to exchange the Mangal Sutra, they're going to exchange the toe rings. And so as you're exchanging maybe the American rings, maybe to put that inside of, instead of what we see couples doing in terms of holding off on it until last and then nobody's paying attention and it doesn't have as much meaning. And often enough people can look at it and say, hey, did they do this or they did that? But if you keep switching it up, it will require both sides to engage equally and not get lost throughout the process. So that's one way that you can definitely blend cultures, blend traditions, and try to find those rituals that kind of work for both of you guys. Don't cancel one or another out. I would say to definitely ask your parents for their information on their side. What one Indian family finds is important, the next Indian family will find is not so important. So really getting on the lines of like, what is wanted, what is needed, what is important, and what is not is really going to be key to making sure that you guys find the perfect medium for everybody. And so you've heard me say before, as I've been on this journey of my own, in 2000, Srinu and I had actually gotten married. We met in 1998, and I was able to experience firsthand. This is not information that I gathered or things that I've put together, but my brother-in-law had an arranged marriage in 2003, and I got to experience it from the selection of the bride all throughout the process. And then even now, them being married versus seeing how my marriage is and how they both are very different in very various ways. I think that it's very important that you sit back and you say to yourselves, what is it that you want this journey to look like for you guys? And I think it's important that you see from, the groom or the bride side, if they're South Asian, find out what did they ever expect growing up? What was it that they saw for themselves? And then switch that script also on the other side and think to yourself, what is it that you saw for your wedding or ceremony? You'd also be surprised at how many people just haven't thought about this up until, and that could be a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing about that is you're never going to be stuck to anything because there's no dreams that are going to be canceled. There's no sadness or sorrow that's going to be found in not doing specific things throughout the ceremony. And you can start with a clean slate. But if there are things that are really important to each of you, or you always thought you would do when you got married, those are the things that deserve the understanding from both sides to make sure that you can fit those in. One thing, for an example, that I can tell you with Srinu and I was shortly after we had gotten married and had kids. I didn't really know too much about the head shaving thing that happens in the Hindu religion. And my father-in-law very much wanted this. And we had waited and waited and waited because they wanted us to do this on an odd year. And the one thing that was really stressing me out was he had these ringlets and they were getting long and everybody was always calling him a girl. And, we just weren't finding time to go to India to have this done. And every time we thought we'd go to India, it was never an odd year. So we had agreed that we were going to get his haircut. I was pushy about it. And Srini was like, yeah, we're parenting. We'll go get his haircut. And then after we had gotten his haircut, Srinu just kind of went into himself and I saw him drop a tear and I was so sad because I felt like I took that from him. I felt like I was so pushy that I didn't stop and listen to what he wanted or what mattered to him in any of that. And he was so in love with me that he was willing to compromise on everything in order to make me happy. And in order to make sure that doesn't happen with you guys, I wholeheartedly and sincerely just ask you guys to take time and sit and talk about these things that maybe you've thought about for a long time or envisioned for a long time, even though you didn't have your life partner. And now is the time to talk about that stuff. So you want to make sure that your journey tells your story and not anybody else's. And the important things are both in there for each of you, because at the end of the day, this is your wedding and you want to look back on it and not say, oh, that was just how your parents wanted it. Oh, my mom wanted that so bad. You want to make sure that you have things in there that say, oh my gosh, I don't know how we even made that work, but I'm so happy that we did because that was really like an expression of us. So think about these things. Take the time. You won't regret doing that. And on another note, I want to have a conversation about how important it is to include both of your families on this quest to become one. I'm not saying that you take everything that they want and you do it, but I'm saying that when you guys start the wedding planning process, do not divide. I promise if you divide in this wedding planning process, they will conquer. I've experienced this firsthand. So anytime you guys have a conversation with regards to wedding planning with either sides of the family, please, please, please make sure that you both take the time to be in those meetings, to talk, whether it's vendors or parents, equally so, to make sure that everybody is on the same page, has the same understanding, and one doesn't win over the other. It's important that these conversations are held together jointly so that your parents, your family members see that you guys are together and cannot be divided. That is one of the biggest tips I can give you throughout this entire video that will mean the most and carry you guys the furthest, not just through the planning, but through your entire married life. So remember to engage them on conversations. Ask them each for 5 things that matter most. And then you guys take the total of 10 and you sit down and you say, how can we make these uniquely our own? How can we make these say us and not them, but fulfill the needs that need to be met with making your parents happily ever after with you as well, and respectful. This is not a matter of wanting one thing or another, but it's a matter of just simply showing them that although you might have put a little twist on it for yourselves, you were definitely showing a little bit of respect to them throughout the process. And shall I remind you guys of just how important it is to focus on yourself? There's a lot of parts of this process that if you guys do it together, it will certainly show as you plan out every single little detail. Now, I know that you're both not going to be able to be there for everything and sit through hours and hours of doing things together. But if you guys can get just the top of it done, right? If you can get the top of the topic, if you want to say, and you guys decide, okay, this is what we want to do, and then let the other one run with it. And then you guys come back together and say, okay, so what did we come up with? And then that's where the other side can sprinkle a little bit more in. Some of these things where you can focus on you guys is going to relate more to the fun stuff anyway, like the decor, the dresses where you guys can mix. When it comes to blending the cultures, I would say try not to stray too far away from what you're doing in one over the other. So if you were doing the white dress per se, maybe blend some of that in with your South Asian ceremony. Nobody said that you ever had to wear complete red. red. So if red is not your thing, go look at some of these designers that have some amazing marks of white in there and have really blended together East meets West. Sabyasachi is a big one. Tarantulani is another one. There are so many designers out there now that have really done an amazing job at being able to soften the tones, but still bring together that look so that when you look through your album, if you don't choose to do multiple separate albums, you can transition from one ceremony to another ceremony, or both ceremonies look equally blended, and then transition into that wedding reception attire. So take time to put little splashes of yourselves into the attire. That is going to be the stuff that when you guys walk back and you look at all your wedding pictures, that should be what it focuses around. So when you have the opportunity to do that, you're doing decor and you're doing your wedding attire, and then you get to splash the food in there. There are so many things that we can do with wedding food now. If you sit and you talk with your caterer, you're going to find that caterers love to do this stuff, from Indo-Chinese food to mixing Mexican and Indian. Like, there's so many common grounds that you can mix and just give it that twist that it needs to be, in order to make your families both feel like you've met them in the middle somehow, but neither one of them has been lost to the bathroom or to the boredom of lack of flavor and savoriness. So put your minds behind that. Think of stations where people can congregate and linger around and get to know each other, mix and mingle, not just a straightforward buffet line. Buffets are getting more and more boring. And every time I see a straight buffet, I wonder to myself, why couldn't they just fancy it up a little bit? You're paying a lot of money for these caterers, and there's no harm in asking them to fancy up their buffet lines. They can make these tables that can kind of S out and then feed from both sides. And on top of it, they can really make those tables look nice and neat and pleasing to the eye. Just remember that when you're thinking food, if it looks good, it could taste bad, but people are going to remember what that presentation looked like after their bite. So keep that in mind. It's super important as well to all the cultural aspects that you guys are going to mix together. And there's going to be a lot of food at your wedding. So take some time to really think that through. Another thing that you guys can definitely personalize when it comes to Indian American weddings is the music. Like, we obviously grew up with a lot of awesome music that your family has also grown up with as kids, especially if you guys both were born and raised here. There is nothing wrong with mixing the music up that we've grown up with here in America and helping your parents, your aunties, mix it in as well. There are so many songs that have been blended with American tunes that match the Indian tunes that these DJs can now find them, and they can totally mix them in order to give it like an Indian American vibe in the same song. And everybody will be on the dance floor if you do that, because even though one might not understand the words, the other will understand the beat. And if you can do that, you're going to have a dance floor that just stays hopping all night long. Because if you don't do that, there are these little lulls that happen on the dance floor. And DJs know best that if you lose your crowd too early on, people are going to eat and people are going to leave. So make sure you find vendors that understand and know exactly who your audience is. And that is people who definitely have some type of expertise in the South Asian market. I tell people time and time again, you can find people on all different price spectrums when it comes to understanding South Asian weddings. But unfortunately, some of them are going to be entering into the market. The price is going to be a little bit lower, but the price that you might pay for venturing out and doing that might be a little bit more steeper. Make sure you think that through when you book your vendors and what it is that you want to see from them, because that's really important as you're planning all this and it's taking so much of your time, effort, and energy. You want to make sure that when you have those pictures, everything was executed exactly how you hoped it had been. And here's the last topic that I'm really going to touch down on when it comes to planning your South Asian, Indian American wedding. It's one that I think a lot of people don't put much time, effort, and energy into. Maybe that they really should, because the worst thing that a guest can feel is lost or confused or not understanding the process that's going on. And then that makes them feel intimidated. So as you go through your planning process and you guys start planning out where these functions are going to happen, in which particular location, which particular room, make sure that you guys have those welcome bags to not only invite everybody in, but try to heal some of those ailments before they occur, like the Tums that we would put in our bags, aspirin, Motrin, all these little things for little aches and pains that might be discovered along the way so that they are not worried about where they're going to get these. A lot of people think that hotels have these, not necessarily all the time. So when you're planning those welcome bags, make sure you include those things in. Tums is a must, as well as Motrin or Tylenol. They're super important because a lot of times people aren't used to the music and they're not used to the food. So it's important that they have some of those aids to help them through so they don't miss any of your important events. It's really important that in that welcome bag, you have something that explains not only the timeline of your events, but walks them through which each one is going to be and helps them understand maybe even the dress code for each. It would be presumptuous to assume that everybody knows what they should wear when they come. I've seen people that show up to weddings in blue jeans and polo shirts. And while some people might find that that's okay, I definitely would put business casual on there. Just let people know that even with COVID and all that, we've all gotten relaxed, but you definitely want them to put forth a little bit of energy into dressing up decently for your wedding. One of the things that I've seen a lot of and encourage this in our own weddings is clients that have big family pictures that are going to be happening on the wedding day. Encourage your immediate families to dress within a color palette. This is going to make you guys have beautiful pictures for years to come that most often clients don't get because they're not together enough throughout the year. But not only that, families always break off and they do their own pictures together. And what more than to have this beautiful picture of mom, dad, and the kids that they didn't even think about, which had them all beautifully blending together in these pictures of family pictures that they just are like, man, we've never looked so great as a family. So these color examples, color palettes, little ideas that you can suggest doesn't really dictate what your whole wedding guest list is going to do, but especially that blended part of your family, his, hers, and theirs, I would definitely send out and say, hey guys, we'd love to be within this color scheme. Don't care what you wear, but if we could be within this color scheme, it's going to make our pictures look even more amazing, given that we've hired a professional photographer. Let's make most of our time together. That way it sounds less pushy, but more like you gave them an idea and they're like, she's right. Let's take an opportunity. You want to make sure that you just give these little notes to educate each one of your family members as you embark on this journey and make them feel, again, equally blended together. And when you're doing that with the Indians and the Americans, you're going to find that it's going to help even fuse it tighter and tighter together. Make sure you blend in those ceremonial aspects, as I've mentioned before, one for one. And like I said, if you bring in these outfits the way I mentioned, everybody's going to feel even more and more closer together as you partake in these different things that happen throughout the number of days in which you have. Some of you are planning one-day weddings and it happens fast. So make the most of the time that you guys spend together. It's super important. In closing, I want to make sure that I tell you guys, this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. I feel like I've been a part of this culture for so long that sometimes it's hard for me to forget where my culture begins and that one ends. I think that just goes a lot for me to be able to say that we've done a pretty good job at blending the two, making compromise where it needs to happen and not forgetting who we are individually. If you use these little tidbits of information, I promise you that both of you, both sides of your family, will be the better for it. So I'm going to encourage you guys, if you have had fun on these episodes and now you're inspired and you're just looking for more ways to get inspired, feel free to head over to our Instagram page. We are at the Rigettis, and there is so much South Asian wedding inspo over there that will last for days, maybe even longer than that to come, where you guys can just get ideas of how the blending is happening. We have a lot of Indian weddings as well as Indian-American weddings. And as I said, there's so much inspiration to be had over there. If you guys haven't booked a wedding photographer, definitely check out our availability. Reach out to us. You can text, email, or call. Just find us over there at rigettis.com. Click the contact page, and whether you guys are ready to just inquire to find out if our services might be right for you, or you want to schedule a Zoom call with me, you can do so right there on the contact page itself. And last but not least, I have to ask you guys, because we must teach this algorithm a lesson so that it puts me in the places that I need to be. So if you guys don't mind, subscribe, like, share, and follow me everywhere.